Did the NFL intentionally appeal the Deshaun Watson suspension on National Boob Day? Because that seems pretty tasteless. Welcome to That's Good Sports. The NFL has appealed the Deshaun Watson suspension. Yeah, 6 games was always just a number. Another number, 126. And those are the number of miles per hour Hollywood Brown was driving when he was arrested Wednesday morning. Today, I'll talk about why that probably won't result in a suspension, why Watson will ultimately be suspended at least a year, and I just want to say, rest in peace to all of the overzealous Browns fans who drafted Deshaun Watson in their fantasy leagues thinking 6 games was the real number. You idiot. This is That's Good Sports. Hey, if you like guys who drive 10 miles under the speed limit, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Today's episode is sponsored by Manscaped, the global, dare I say, interstellar leader in men's testicular grooming and hygiene. Manscaped now offers the Platinum Package 4.0, which is the ultimate pube, shaving, and body washing kit. Think about it, guys. You've got 2 balls and 1 penis. That's 3. So if you order the Platinum Package, you can say, I'm triple platinum, baby. Now this comes with everything. The Lawnmower 4.0, which is Manscaped's best nether region hair trimmer yet. They added a light to it, which honestly is super helpful when you're grooming around your balls, and it is simply the best pube trimmer out there. Also, I haven't used another body wash brand or shampoo since Manscaped introduced those items into the lineup, and their aluminum-free deodorant smells so good sometimes I try and sweat on purpose. That's me trying to sweat. This package also includes the Weed Whacker for your nose and ear hair. That's 4 of your 5 head holes. Can we get a toothpaste, Manscaped? You know the deal. Use my link below. Go to manscaped.com/goodsports to get 20% off your order, plus 2 free gifts and free international shipping. We do have a couple headlines from around the league. The Saints had to kick their first-round rookie lineman Trevor Penning out of practice after he started a fight for the 3rd straight practice. Early signs indicate that they just drafted a Hall of Fame lineman. Now the Broncos lost wide receiver Tim Patrick and running back Damare Crockett to ACL injuries. Denver has lots of depth at the receiver position, but they've already brought in a running back to add depth there. They signed running back Christian McCaffrey? Wait, that's who? Max Borghi, who was also from Denver. I hate to accuse anyone of adultery, but do we know where Ed McCaffrey was 9 months before Max Borghi was born? And doesn't McCaffrey already have another son named Max? This shit's weird, because he looks exactly like a McCaffrey. Legendary sports announcer Vin Scully passed away this week. He was literally one of, if not the best broadcasters of all time. He and John Madden both going within a year. That's really rough. And every time someone like Vin Scully, who is universally loved, passes away, all I can think is, why didn't Alex Jones die instead? Steelers wide receiver Diontae Johnson agreed to a 2-year, $36.7 million extension, or as Johnson called it, my reward for playing with the shittiest version of Big Ben and then getting Mitch Trubisky, who has the field vision of Daredevil and the guy who needs hand Viagra to grip a football. Linebacker Anthony Barr signed with the Dallas Cowboys. Barr said, as a former Viking guided by the hand of Kirk Cousins, it made sense for me to come play with the black Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott here in Dallas. Cardinals wide receiver Hollywood Brown was arrested for criminal speeding. What is criminal speeding? Well, it's driving so fast that you are no longer just an asshole, but now a criminal. In Arizona, criminal speeding is exceeding 85 miles per hour, exceeding the posted speed limit by 20 miles per hour, exceeding 35 miles per hour approaching a school zone. Now, Hollywood Brown which is also what the Academy refers to Hollywood when they're forced to give Oscars to non-whites, was driving 126 miles per hour on the 101 in Phoenix, according to local police. Now, even if he thought the 101 was the posted speed limit, he was still driving 25 miles per hour too fast. And unless Hollywood had a really good excuse, diarrhea, then I think he should be punished to the fullest extent. Again, unless he was trying to get to a toilet. We can all relate to that. Now, it's nice to see Brown fitting in with the Cardinals and their long tradition of reckless driving. And unlike his forefathers, at least Brown had the courtesy to not be drunk and or sleeping because he was drunk in his car like Steve Keim and Michael Floyd. Now, this is the first official step Hollywood Brown has taken to follow in his cousin Antonio Brown's footsteps. Well, technically, Antonio Brown doesn't leave footsteps anymore. But you know what I mean. AB, too, was once ticketed for driving 100 miles an hour in a 40 mile an hour zone, which set in motion a string of off-field issues that really requires a certified historian to properly document. The Arizona Cardinals did trade for Hollywood Brown during the draft to help the offense during the 6-game DeAndre Hopkins suspension. With the Hollywood Brown arrest, there's a possibility he's suspended as well. Why on earth would the NFL suspend a man for speeding? I mean, speeding in and of itself isn't the worst traffic violation out there. That, of course, is loudly listening to country music with your windows rolled down, or driving a Tesla truck while listening to country music with your windows rolled down. But if Brown was going as fast as it's being reported, the NFL may have to dole out some sort of punishment, considering just last year, Raiders wide receiver Henry Ruggs fucking killed a person while driving drunk and at a speed of 156 miles per hour. Now, a criminal charge is something the NFL could deem conduct detrimental to the league and justify that with a suspension. That's probably unlikely, though, since this is just a speeding violation and a misdemeanor, and it may not be fair to punish Hollywood for Ruggs' atrocious crimes. But the point is, if you like country music, keep your goddamn windows rolled up. Now, Deshaun Watson. The NFL has decided to appeal the Deshaun Watson suspension. So Deshaun Watson's 6-game suspension didn't even last 3 days. This disciplinary process is dumb, and I love it. Like Rasputin, this Watson story just won't fucking die. What this means is now Roger Goodell or someone Roger Goodell appoints will hear the appeal and decide to extend or implement a fine or both for the punishment. And according to Jeff Darlington, the NFL is appealing for an indefinite suspension that would be a minimum of 1 year. But perhaps more significant, given the structure of Watson's contract, sources tell me the NFL's appeal will also include a monetary fine. Money is now a significant part of the equation. When is it not, though? Do you think Goodell is going to appoint someone to the hearing who wouldn't rule exactly the way he wants? He'd have to be a real Urban Meyer to do that. Sorry, moron. And according to Mike Florio, Roger Goodell will not hear the appeal himself, but will appoint someone to do so. Again, let's assume that will be a friend to Goodell. Essentially, the NFL appeased the new disciplinary process that the NFLPA advocated for in the most recent collective bargaining agreement by letting the third-party disciplinary officer, and in this case, Sue L. Robinson, hear the case. And since the NFL, along with the general public, don't agree with her 6-game suspension, they're going to do whatever they want. Which in this case is actually probably the right thing to do, but in the bigger picture, it's an example of how the NFLPA didn't do shit for the players in the last collective bargaining agreement. Now, in the CBA, it states that the independent arbitrator's ruling is only a recommendation that the NFL/NFLPA can accept or appeal. That's why her 6-game ruling is meaningless. Now, if either appeal, Roger Goodell himself makes the final decision, which is full, final, and complete, which is binding on all parties. That's the language in the CBA. Now, some are suggesting that Sue L. Robinson gave a very lenient punishment so the NFL and Roger Goodell could come in and look like the good guys. for once, when they eventually dropped the hammer on Watson. Now, if you read through her ruling, which I didn't, I'm just taking other people's words for it, but she said she believed the NFL provided evidence of sexual assault and several violations of the league's personal conduct policy. She did not find Watson's testimony credible, and he did not show remorse for his actions, which is interesting considering the Browns, on Watson's behalf, has stated that he's remorseful. So she basically laid out in her ruling evidence of guilt, but only gave Watson 6 games. Now, the NFL also apparently offered Watson and the NFLPA a deal of a 12-game suspension and a $10 million fine, which they declined. If the NFL wants an indefinite suspension with a year minimum, they're going to get that. So to be clear, what the NFL wants is at least a year suspension. They also want treatment and therapy for Deshaun Watson, and they want him to pay a big fine. Now, based on everything that I've read, if the NFL goes this route, Watson and the NFLPA can, but have a small chance at winning any type of lawsuit they file against the NFL to counter the year-long indefinite suspension. In fact, that would probably hurt Watson the most financially. So I sort of hope he does it. If he appeals the appeal through a federal court, he will still play this season after the 6-game suspension if he's granted an injunction. They're not contesting the 6 games. Then he and the NFLPA will battle the NFL in the federal courts, which processes cases slower than Drew Lock processes defenses. The experts are saying most lawyers don't like to fight against CBAs in court, which in this case says Goodell's word is final. And it's hard to argue something two parties agreed on in writing. If Watson gets an injunction and he plays through the rest of the 2021 season after serving those 6 games, that's the only season where all of his money is protected, meaning if the federal court eventually sided with the NFL, then the NFL could suspend Deshaun Watson possibly for all of 2023, where he'd lose a lot of money, plus all of the money he and the NFLPA would have to have spent fighting the NFL in the courts. The NFLPA has to decide how much of their war chest they want to waste on Watson and take away from other players if needed. The NFL could re-offer their original 12-game, $10 million deal, because there's the thought that the NFL does not want to go to court against Watson because, you know, NFL owners Dan Snyder, Jerry Jones, and Robert Kraft may have their dirty sex laundry aired once again in the discovery process of this case. Not to mention how utterly confusing it would be for Dan Snyder to remember which legal battle he's fucking fighting. Hey, is this the case where I'm trying to prove I'm not a scumbag to John Gruden? Or the one where I'm trying to prove I'm not a scumbag to Deshaun Watson and the NFL? Who am I on my yachts? Where am I? I agree with everyone who is pissed that none of the owners have been held as accountable as the NFL is trying to do with Deshaun Watson. Dan Snyder's case is just as bad. But because you got it wrong before doesn't mean you shouldn't start getting it right now. Technically, Dan Snyder is also suspended indefinitely and received a $10 million fine. So the NFL wanted to give Watson less than that, when you think about it. The last thing I want to mention is that the NFL wants Watson to get therapy for his behavior while he's suspended.
Get out of here. That's not fair.
Fair? What are you talking about fair? Oh, God's fair. They don't give a shit about fair.
And then apply to be reinstated. This is what the NFL used to do when they dished out those year-long weed and or substance abuse punishments. Except with those, there was a pretty easy way to prove that a player was not using drug and alcohol tests. How does Deshaun Watson prove he doesn't want to jack off on his masseuses without their permission anymore? Actually, I don't want to know how the NFL would make him prove that.
Gene is quite slender.
We got bigger things to talk about than Gene Cusimano's ass.
Thanks for watching That's Good Sports. Please subscribe here on YouTube. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, @Brandon Perna if you like those socials, and watch the video on the screen right now or YouTube will erase me from existence.